Just calm down now. I know that you're hungry, and I know that I promised you cookies, but they were just too tasty to save. Please don't eat me. Let's do this! Hello and welcome, fellow travellers. This channel combines guitar lessons with storytelling for educational and entertaining content. If you like this sort of thing, consider subscribing to the channel. However, it looks like I may not make it past this video if I don't find something for the fairies to eat. Besides myself! This is a 3-part series in writing a song for guitar. In the previous lesson, we looked at chords of the major scale, how to build those chords, and how to find the chords you need for songwriting. This lesson follows on from the previous lesson, and so, amongst other things, we'll be looking at chord functions, effects produced between chord functions, and how this all ties into a popular chord progression. We'll look at the theory, then look at examples of how the theory is used later on in the video. Let's go! Let's bring up our chords of the major scale. We'll be using the key of A major since we used this key last time. If you remember from last time, we saw that major key harmony is also tonal music, which means that there is one note and one chord that is built on that note that serves as the central place of rest within a key. We call this the root note, or root chord. Each other chord in that key has a function, a role it plays to create movement around that root chord. There are 3 families of chord functions: the tonic, the subdominant, and the dominant. We call them families because there are groups of each chord that form families. Please note, this is nothing like EastEnders. There is far less drama. Each chord here contains 3 core notes that form its structure. These notes are also called chord tones and are taken from the scale of the key they are in. In this instance, the A major scale. The first family are the tonic chords, and their function is being the place of rest where all tension resolves. These are the most stable chords and are the 1st, 3rd and 6th chords. The first chord is the Big Daddy, which is the ultimate place of rest. These fairies sleep a lot and are the least likely to devour me should I fail to find the cookies. The reason why they are tonic chords is because they contain 2 or more chord tones that are tonic notes or stable notes from the major scale. The tonic notes of the major scale being the 1, 3 and 5. The second family are the subdominant chords. Their function is creating tension by moving away from the tonic. They are unstable chords and are the 2nd and the 4th chords in the major scale. These fairies are a bit more feisty. Pleasant to look at, but up close they reveal themselves to be more crazy than their tonic brethren. The reason they create tension is because their chord tones contain more unstable notes from the major scale. The third family are the dominant chords. Their function is creating more tension by moving further away from the tonic. These are the most unstable chords and are the 5th and 7th chords. Here we are only looking at the 5th chord, the 5-7, and not the 7th chord, the minor 7 flat 5, since this is a beginner's guide to songwriting and it is the least used chord in major key harmony. The minor 7 flat 5 chord will be covered in another lesson. These guys are volatile and are just as likely to cuddle you as they are to chew your face off. So what's the point in all this? Well, when 2 chord functions interact or are played one after the other, they either create or resolve tension. It is this tension and resolution in chords, even simply notes, that forms the basis of harmony and melody in music itself. It's what makes music music. Let's look at the effects produced between each of these chord functions. So, we have our chords of the major scale, the most common chords in music. We know what function each chord has. Now, we need to know what effects are created between each of these chords. Knowing these effects, you will be able to choose the direction your music takes. You'll be able to identify what needs to change in order to make your songs better. Let's dive in. There are 4 effects in chord progressions. 1, progression, which builds tension, like when you lose your keys. Fuck, I've lost my keys! Where could they be? 2, resolution, which resolves tension. You find your keys. Aha! There they are. And a spoon. 3, Prolongation, which prolongs tension. You're searching for your keys. Where could they be? Oh god. 4. Retrogression, which retreats from tension. You say screw it and leave the house anyway, intending to use your housemate's keys. Screw it! Progression happens when a more stable chord moves to a more unstable chord. This is from a tonic to a subdominant, or a subdominant to a dominant. Resolution happens when an unstable chord moves to a stable chord. This is from a subdominant or a dominant to a tonic. Prolongation happens when a chord function stays the same. For instance, a tonic moves to a tonic, or a subdominant moves to a subdominant. Retrogression happens when a more unstable chord moves to a less unstable chord. This is only from a dominant to a subdominant. Phew! We've covered a lot in this and the last lesson. It's time to put all of this information into context within some of the most popular chord progressions used today. Good fairies, you're playing nice. I'm running out of time. Help!
James.
What? Who said that?
James. Open the chest. Use the symbols to guide you. Time is running out. Hurry.
The 1-4-5 progression is a true classic, being used in such tunes as Ring of Fire, Jolly Be Good, and Three Little Birds. It starts with a tonic chord, which then progresses to a 4 chord, stable to unstable. The 4 chord then builds tension further by progressing to the 5 chord, unstable to most unstable. On the repeat, the 5 would then resolve back to the 1, most unstable to stable. This is a staple chord progression in jazz, and if you ever get into jazz playing, it's elaborated upon to appear in many different forms. It starts with a subdominant chord, the 2, which progresses to a dominant, the 5. The 5 then resolves to a 1, from dominant to tonic. On the repeat, the 1, tonic, progresses to a 2, subdominant. Another staple chord progression in jazz. This progression starts with a tonic, which prolongs the tension, or lack thereof, by moving to the 6th chord, another tonic. It then progresses to the 2, a subdominant, and therefore builds tension. And finally, then progresses to the 5 chord, which builds more tension. On the repeat, the 5 chord then resolves back to the 1. Here you go. Ah!
Thank you, kind sir. Our mouths were so dry we could not speak. We needed sustenance to find our voices. Cookies and humans are our 2 favorite foods, and we accidentally locked away our cookies, so we came to you in hopes you would figure out the riddle. And you did.
Not a problem. It's not like my life depended on it.
If we ever make this mistake again, we'll be sure to come straight back.
Please don't.
Thank you.
So, fellow travellers, we've learned much in our 2-part lesson series. Here's what we've covered. Major scale formula, building chords in major scale, 2 examples of finding chords to use for songwriting, chord functions, effects produced between these functions, and applying this information within the context of popular chord progressions. I encourage you to play around with your own chord progressions, analyse them as we did in this lesson, and see if you can identify what's going on. It will become much easier if you want to change the progression around. This lesson series will continue and conclude in part 3. Until next time, farewell!